Hey guys, this is a quick overview of my JQ 400 mini skid steer from China. Do a quick walk around, some overviews, some things I like about it, some things I don't like about it. So first of all, these JQ 400s are very similar to the AGT LTR 23. Very similar. I chose this over the AGT because I liked how the back had this curve. There's a panel that I don't have on it now. It just fit nicer when you're standing on it, like you're not banging your knees on this flat thing. I ended up taking the back panel off just because it's easier to get to the engine and everything. So we have a Rado V-twin 740cc. I think it's about 23 horsepower. Runs awesome, starts awesome. I added another inline fuel filter, or I replaced the one up here and added one down here. I was having some problems. I did have to take the carb off once and clean it. There was some junk in the bowl, which feeds the jets. So then the Rado engine, it's sitting on top of the fuel tank here, fuel cap here. I find if you put the cap on too tight, basically it creates a vacuum in the tank, and the little diaphragm fuel pump up here can't keep up and they start bogging down. A lot of guys just throw a electric fuel pump in line here. I do plan on doing that, but for now I just leave the cap kind of loose. I did lose it once, but lets enough air in so it doesn't vacuum lock the fuel tank. On this side you got an oil cooler for the engine oil. Back in there you got an oil filter. You got your work platform here, folds up. You got your controls here. I took all the decals off, they were kind of peeling and looked like crap anyways. So on this side you got your cigarette lighter, power port, choke, fuel gauge, hydraulic oil temperature, hour meter. Got 5.3 hours on it. LED work lights. A horn, throttle, key switch, and your battery disconnect. So I'll pop the hood, show you underneath. The loader arm's up right now. You should work underneath loader arms. So this folds up. There's a little arm there. Here's your hydraulic oil cooler. Can't lift it there, my hand's in the way. It flips forward. Nice big electric fan to cool the hydraulics. Right here is your fuel level float. Tandem pumps. They control two valve bodies. One pump does each one. One does the right hand track drive, left hand bucket raise, bucket curl. Down the belly you have your battery, your hydraulic tank. It looks like there's a filter in there, but if you take the cap off, all it is like a baffle from the return oil coming in through this line, but splashes around there and goes into the tank. There's no filter. Hydraulic fill cap. There's no good place to drain the hydraulic fluid. When I first got this, I wanted to drain the hydraulic fluid, put new fluid in it, but there's no drain. So I tried taking the caps off, taking this off to stick a hose in there with a pump to just suck everything out, but that didn't work. So from the back side of the motor, you got your muffler, oil filter. Mine came with an extra oil filter. You got your starter, voltage regulator, all that stuff on this side. And down the sides, you got your dry motors, which you can see here. So mine came with all the bolts loose. All these bolts were loose. So I put a wrench on each one, tighten them, because the whole drive motor would move around. You can see where the drive sprocket hits the undercarriage frame and it catches the tooth there. It still does it sometimes. Like if you get into weird angles, it's like the machine flexes and then this tooth will catch. But I mean, when you're trying to reverse, it locks and you can't go backwards. You have to only go forward. One thing that happened to me a lot when I first got this was the tracks come off super easy. I don't think they're tight enough from factory. You don't want to over tighten them because you'll split the tracks, or these Chinese tracks will break. Another thing, this front idler wheels. It's hard to capture. There's a lot of play side to side. And on a small track like this, the side to side play in this front idler wheel would cause the pulley to get at an angle. And then as you're walking, like you can see the track's not straight here. It just walks itself off. So you gotta learn how to operate. You can't just turn in one spot. You gotta kind of take gradual turns and everything. Another thing about this machine, just not a lot of ground clearance. You can get high centered. I stripped some sod there for I'm gonna put a little parking area. Gotta get some gravel. Gotta do the fence here. Right now it's just pallets and temporary fence panels. But I'd get high centered on the sod and you'd have to try to work yourself off with the bucket. But the way that this thing is plumbed, you can't really use a bucket control and a drive at the same time. Like if you're trying to drive and make little micro adjustments on your bucket, if you're say grading, it's going to stop your drives. You can't get your bucket in a way to push into the dirt, back yourself out when you get stuck. You gotta little micro adjustments. So another thing I did, this is the loader lever for your arms. It was set up so that this was up, which is backwards to a normal skid steer. This is normally up. So I changed the lines at the cylinders on each side. I just flipped them around. So now this is up. Makes more sense while operating it, less cumbersome. So the hydraulic fan comes on automatically when you flip on the key switch. It starts pretty easy. It's kind of hard to do when you don't have two hands. You want to hold the choke. So I have a set of Wolverine pallet forks I got for this. They're supposed to be a mini skid steer style, like a Toro style, but they didn't fit because there was a chunk of steel on each side on the attachment plate. They would sit like that. It was as wide as this. So I cut it off because it doesn't really serve any purpose. So now these pallet forks fit. It looks like I have to hammer this up a bit, but they fit. You can see here at the pivot point, there doesn't seem to be any space here, so it does wear. It's starting to wear here. I was surprised though when I had these pins out that there's actually a bushing in here, so that's good. You can replace that. I don't know, you get another one. The grease zerks are nice and protected in these pins. Some of these more exposed ones have a flat fitting on it, but you can also grease this pin just from here. The pin is drilled, so it does get greased too without having to use this. The hydraulic fittings on these machines are metric. A lot of people refer to them as a din. A din would be this here, a tube fitting, but these ends, they're metric. These are an M18 by 1.5. Some of the machines that have fittings into a cylinder like this is a BSPP, British Standard Pipe Parallel. They have a bonded seal washer here. And another thing, this third function takes flow from, I believe it's this valve body, this pump. So there's not a third pump for it. So if you're trying to run a hydraulic function, like in a trench or a sweep or something like that, you're not going to be able to drive smoothly and operate at the same time. You'll have to lock it, give it little bumps, give it a little bump to trench along. I wouldn't use this machine or similar machine for a sweeper, but for a trencher, it'd work pretty good. Maybe an auger too, because you can just down a little bit while it's in there doing this augering. Overall, I'm very pleased with the machine. A few little mods to make it better. It's very handy with the pallet forks for moving stuff around. The bucket's very handy. I did kind of bend and rip it, trying to pry some concreted in fence posts. So be leery of that. The hydraulics are stronger than the bucket. So